Good evening, I hope everyone's well today. Thank you for watching. It is appreciated as always. I watched a clip online yesterday about a debate in the Canadian Federal Parliament, and it's chilling, and I'm going to get to the implications of that later in the video. Well, it's about digital ID, digital currency, and government overreach, and the agenda that's being rolled out across the Western world to liberal governments and the liberal elites who want to rule and control us. I appreciate your time, and we're going to get into the first bit. Remember a few years ago, Boris Johnson was forced to roll back the Chinese involvement in the 5G network infrastructure. I don't think they wanted to stop the Chinese having the foothold in the door regarding the infrastructure. I think it was just too obvious. That's the reason why that was rolled back. We all know there's a communist social credit system in the sorry, not in the United Kingdom, that's coming though, in communist China. And that's why you get a lot of left leaning people loving China because they've got people under the boot of communism and they want to spread this across the world. That's why Labour is making sure that their spies aren't getting prosecuted. And this is why they're allowing super embassies to the Chinese in London because they are in bed with the communists. Again, that's just my opinion. Your mileage may vary on that point. This company, just like every communist company in China, they're obliged to give all of that data and the information that they get for private business dealings with other companies to the communists. That's why any Chinese company needs to be watched closely. Some people may not know that, but I'm letting you know that that's what actually happens. So that's a point of note. Let me get into the second thing here. Plans to turn the entire London borough into an AI prison. This isn't just limited to this London borough, by the way. This is going to be rolled out across the country. I'm going to give you some of the detail on this bit now. This is from Big Brother Watch. You may want to give them a follow. Hammersmith and Fulham Council is going full Orwell, proposing permanent fixed cameras with live facial recognition, a fleet of drones to monitor people, cameras with retrospective facial recognition to trace people's movements across the borough, 500 AI cameras with object recognition, automatic vehicle tracking with GPS tagging, crowd build-up alerts, instant search through thousands of hours of footage, attaching speakers to cameras so officers can directly address people in public, all for $3 million of taxpayers' money. Who voted for this? Did you vote for this? I didn't vote for this. This is just the start, by the way, and we're going to get to the video in a minute or so about what's happening in Canada so I can tie all of this in. This is the next thing. The live facial recognition cameras that's been piloted in these particular boroughs in London, they are going to be rolled out nationwide. They have already been tried in London and also parts of Wales, I think, down in Cardiff. But this is being rolled out across the board. This is what's happening in the Canadian Parliament. I'm going to play the clip now.
On to the present bill. I am concerned, as I say, by the following sections. 15.1 and 15.2 give the minister the unprecedented, incredible power to kick any private Canadian citizen off the internet, to cut off their phone line, to turn off their cell phone. That is the plain language summary, but I will quote now the bill in its legalese. If there is reasonable grounds to believe that it is necessary to do so to secure the Canadian telecommunication system against any threat, the minister may prohibit a telecommunication service provider from providing any service to the specified person. Now, perhaps this might make sense to do in an extreme circumstance if a person is trying to cause our satellites to crash or to jam military radar. But this section does not use language about extreme threats of physical damage or threats to national security. It says any threat. And as far as I can tell, given the Liberals' incautious and bombastic use of terms like misinformation, that being any information they don't like, or existential threat, for instance, the member from Milton called the leader of my party an existential threat to our democracy, which is, of course, bananas.
This is the issue. And this is the issue when they use vague language. It can be interpreted any which way. The government or the institution that's enforcing the law, it's open to interpretation. They can literally interpret it any which way that they want. It's like the Online Safety Act or the 2010 Equalities Act. It's not if you've done something wrong, it's the perception that you might have done something wrong, which is why they use phrases like legal but harmful. If something like this can pass in Canada under the Liberals, something like this can pass in Britain under the Tories or under Labour. The Online Safety Act was passed under Tories, remember, and so was the Equalities Act in 2010. All right. So when you're thinking about, oh well, this is in Canada, it's not going to apply here. No, they're all singing from the same hymn sheet. And with the digital cameras that are getting rolled out all across the country, facial recognition cameras, and then you think about digital currencies when they come in. If you say something that the government doesn't like, or you use your money in a way that the government doesn't think is appropriate, say for example you've got 2 bottles of whiskey one week, they can just check your digital code, digital currency against the facial recognition cameras and say, right, okay, no more whiskey for you this week.
So given their incautious and bombastic use of these phrases, it seems to me that the industry minister could deem any speech she doesn't like any threat, and then kick that person off the internet.
Completely agreed. This politician is on point. Anything that they don't like, the legislators don't like, they can just stop with legislation like this.
This section reaches Chinese Communist Party levels of government overreach, and they should be ashamed of themselves. The bill gets worse, it does not get better, Mr. Speaker. 15.2 Clause 5 gives the minister the ability to make her decision to kick someone off the internet. Secret. So imagine that. You've annoyed the Liberal Party overlords, and they've decided to kick you off the internet and cut your phone line. You can't tell anyone that you've been cut off. I have no idea how this could even possibly be enforced. But imagine being put effectively in a digital gulag, unable to use the phone, or the internet, or your online banking, and if you tell anyone that this happened, you could go to physical jail. I do not doubt that the Liberals will stand and say that I'm being somehow outlandish in my interpretation of this. I am not. It is there in black and white. Let me quote it for them. It seems like they haven't read it. 15.2 Clause 5. An order made under subsection 1 or 2 may include a provision prohibiting the disclosure of its existence, or some or all of its contents, by any person. And if you aren't inclined to believe me, please just Google it.
It's quite chilling, isn't it? The law is so broadly defined it can mean anything, and a number of judges, a number of law enforcement officers, a number of politicians could have different reads and different interpretations on what the law actually is. This is what we need to fight against, and this is why I am so against the digital currency. If you look when you go through a self-checkout in a supermarket at the moment, they've got these cameras. Now, apparently, it's to safeguard against shoplifting, to make you second guess yourself if you are thinking of stealing something. That's the official reason. They can be commandeered, or they can be co-opted for something else later down the line, once we're on a digital currency and they've phased out cash. And it's the same with any online services, like they're doing in Canada. Remember, the current Prime Minister of Canada is Mark Carney, who is a left shill, just like our Prime Minister, and he's the former Governor of the Bank of England, and he got parachuted in at the last second as a counter-Trump vote. This is all deeply Orwellian. They'll try different things in different areas to see where the pushback is, and if they can't get it through in a particular place, they'll get it through somewhere else. And they'll look to that, and then they'll say, oh, we can copy and paste that here. That's how the globalists work. So Carney can do all of this in Canada, and it can report back to his masters, and then it can be tried in another territory. It's the same what happened a few years ago under the Liberals in Canada with the truckers. Imagine how much simpler it would be for them if they had a digital ID. I was seeing this guy recently on Talk TV. I forget his name, but he is quite good. He nails it here. We do need a digital Bill of Rights, so I'm going to play this clip for a minute or two now.
Already, retrospectively, there's tens of thousands of searches being used. We saw one every 2 minutes recently that police forces were doing. So whilst this is now being instructed by the Home Office, this has already been done. There was no manifesto saying these things would be done. Clearview were fined $7.5 million for scraping all our data from Facebook and other platforms. They're often mismatches. We know that there are data breaches. Look, they can't even protect our own service people in Afghanistan and spies, the idea that they could prevent data breaches for some of these things is ludicrous as well. But we've got genuine issues with just tracking and privacy, and the idea that ordinary citizens, everyday citizens, are not suspects.
This is the issue with Commonwealth realms, and specifically the United Kingdom. We have an opposite approach, at least on paper, to the European model, which is why we rejected the EU so resoundingly. They have a top-down approach in the EU, whereas you need to be told it's legal before you can do it, essentially. In the United Kingdom, if the law doesn't say you can't do it, you can do it, so we have the opposite approach, at least in theory. One of the peculiarities of a 1,000-year-old country like England, or 300-year-old country like the United Kingdom is, you do tend to accumulate laws, and the politicians are very good at passing new laws upon new old laws upon older laws. But they're not bothering to repeal other laws, so you end up with a stack all the way up here, and nothing's been repealed. So that's the irony. But I digress. We'll go back to the video.
We should be entitled to enjoy our own privacy, even in public spaces, unfettered, not being scanned, not being monitored, not being surveyed consistently and tracked. And we're increasingly seeing that. And that's why digital ID, alongside this facial recognition, is all part of what we need with the Digital Bill of Rights to say, we can't have these ever-encroaching measures without clarity. So, for instance, at the moment, the police can go to a passport database, but they have to ask the government every single time. We've got precedent.
At the moment, you see, the threshold for a police officer interaction, they have to have a reasonable suspicion that you've committed a crime, or reasonable suspicion that you're going to commit a crime. That's the threshold. The threshold you have in Europe, being the continent, is they can do it whenever. You have to prove you've not done something, rather than the other way around, where they have to think that you've done something wrong. That's the difference.
It's around things like listening on phones and looking at the mail. People still get mail, but we need those ring-fenced protections from the point of view of our liberties, privacy, and rights. In the same way, in this fast-evolving arena, we love technology. It can really transform our lives in positive ways. The problem is, Ian, we've got some technocrats that think that most people are not much good, that if you ask questions about borders or about migration or about lockdowns, that perhaps you shouldn't be saying those things, perhaps you should be behind bars.
So we'll leave that there, but you get the point, and it's completely correct. You say the wrong thing online, you might get a knock on the door to say, can you apologise? And fast forward 10 years, you've got a digital currency, you've got your digital ID, you're being scanned 20, 30 times a day with facial recognition cameras. They just cut out the middleman. You get an email from the police saying, right, okay, you said something naughty online, Mr. Smith. We're going to turn off your internet. We're going to turn off your phone. You can't use your currency. And you're essentially in lockdown at your house until further notice. This is the unchecked power, and this is what we need to call out, which is what I'm doing here. This is the agenda. So when you see bills like this in Canada that are going through now, make no mistake, if it's happening there, it can happen here. If it's happening here, it can happen there. We're all in this together, and you need to be very, very aware of where we're going, and it's a very, very dark place. You may think, Cheshire, you're being hyperbolic. Damien, you do not know what you're talking about. Comment below if you think I'm overstating things. Let me know if you think I'm being too polite about the whole situation, as us British tend to do sometimes. Just some food for thought, but I think this is where we're going, and it's not somewhere I want to go. It sounds like Mordor to me. Anyway, I appreciate your time. I'll see you in the next video. I hope it gives you something to think about. Thank you.